Okay, welcome back, everyone. Nice to see you back. I'm going to move on to this next topic, which is dissolving the ego. Ego serves no purpose. As long as the ego is in the mind, you're not going to be able to have harmonious relationships with everybody around you. You're going to find certain difficulties and struggles because you can't really see the world as it truly is as long as this ego is in the mind. So first, I'm going to explain to you what the ego is. Then I'm going to explain to you the difficulties and struggles that you experience because of it so that you can see that your mind actually has this. Then I'm going to focus most of our time on talking about how to eliminate it, because that's what's really important, is to dissolve it and eliminate it. But you need to know what it is, and you need to know what the symptoms of it are and the difficulties that you're experiencing just to be even interested to eliminate it. So that's why I'm going to start with that. So I'm going to be pausing at different times in order to help you guys to be able to ask questions. What I did with that previous talk is I just went all the way through and opened up for questions at the end. But with this talk, I'm going to be stopping in the middle because there's certain checkpoints that I need to be sure you guys have an opportunity to ask questions before we move to the next part. So just like always, you guys can use the mics here online. You can put it into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So let's just first talk about what the ego is. The ego is a collection of experiences from our past and future expectations that we have of ourselves. The ego is accumulation of thoughts, ideas, and perceptions. Perceptions are like our views and opinions about the world that we have of our self-image or our self-identity. The ego contains arrogance, pride, judgment, measuring and comparing yourself as being superior or inferior to others. The word ego didn't exist during the lifetime of the Buddha. The word that we're using as ego, we're actually combining some of the things that the Buddha taught. So earlier, I was referencing the 10 individual fetters or the 10 pollutions that are in the mind. These are 2 of those pollutions. We're actually referring to this as ego. So I'm going to explain to you guys what these 2 things are first so that you understand them individually, because they actually have different symptoms and they have different methods of eliminating them from the mind. And while we're combining them as ego, which is fine, we can do that, it's important to be able to understand them separately as well, because this is what's going to bring your mind to the full understanding of what the ego is. So what personal existence view is, this is one of the pollutions or the fetters of the mind where the mind has confusion or misunderstanding, thinking that this body is you or this mind is you. The mind will cling to a certain self-image or a certain self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And as long as the mind is being perceived the way that it wants to be perceived, it will be happy about that. It'll have pleasant feelings. But when the mind's not being perceived that way, then it'll experience the painful feelings. So some of you guys have already heard me describe this before, is that if you've ever been in a social situation where you spilled something on your clothing and you were embarrassed by this, that was your personal existence view, because your mind was clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can only feel comfortable if you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. And if you're not being perceived that way, you'll experience painful feelings. So if you've ever looked in the mirror and you saw pimples or wrinkles or moles or gray hair, or you started losing your hair, or you started getting extra fat here or there, and you were shaken up by that, that's the mind's personal existence view. That the mind thinks that this body is who you are. It's craving permanence, wanting this body to look a certain way permanently. And now when you see that wrinkle or the mole or the pimple or a gray hair or something like that, the mind doesn't like that impermanence, and the mind is all shaken up by that. This is the mind's personal existence view related to self-image. You can even get to the point where maybe you stood in front of your closet and you've been thinking, who am I going to see today? And how do I want to look for others? And there's that special shirt or that special pair of pants that you want to wear because you're going to see those particular people and you want to look a certain way for them, right? This is the mind's personal existence view. Then there's self-identity. This is usually based around your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation, or any number of other things that your mind can be holding on to as who you think you are as a person. And now when you cling to that, you can only feel comfortable when you're having agreeable contact. So for example, we talked about this yesterday, I think, where your mind might be thinking, I am Chinese. or I am German, or I am American, or I am Icelandic, right? I am this thing. That is me. That's the identity that your mind's holding on to. But now when you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody says, all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. I've never heard this before, but this could happen, right? Or somebody might say this kind of thing. If you identify with I am American, now you're going to feel pleasant feelings as a result of that. But then it's only a matter of time, 2 tables over, they're going to be saying things degrading and disparaging about the nationality that you're holding in your mind as who you think you are as a person. And now when they're degrading and disparaging Chinese people or Icelandic people or German people or Americans or something like that, your mind will be frustrated, agitated, or annoyed. So this personal existence view, where the mind's clinging to this self-image or this self-identity, is part of the mind's ego, thinking that this is who you are as a person, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can only feel comfortable when you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. But then there's the conceit. Conceit is the 8th fetter. Conceit is the arrogance, the pride, the boastfulness. This is the measuring and comparing, thinking that you're above people or thinking that you're below people. This is what people typically associate with the ego, is the conceit. The mind is looking down on people and talking down to them to a certain degree, or you're looking up to people and maybe you're shaken up and unsteady and uncalm. Maybe when you're around your boss or a favorite celebrity or a famous politician or something like this, you might be shaken up when you're around that person, thinking that you're less than them. This is the mind's conceit. Where this is coming from is our animal existences. We needed conceit. We needed this pecking order in the mind to be able to know who was above us and who was below us. Because if we didn't know who the matriarch of our elephant herd was, we would be out in the forest just roaming and wandering, and we wouldn't know how to be an elephant. We wouldn't know where the food was, where the migration paths were, where the watering holes were. We wouldn't have been able to survive. But when we come into this human world, we retain this conceit. And now it causes us complications. Because now when you're in a setting with multiple people, you'll be constantly trying to measure and compare and see who you're above and who you're below. And now the mind's obsessively trying to figure this out. And it can only feel comfortable if you're feeling like you're above people, right? And now you're looking down on people. You're talking down to people in a certain way. Or you might be putting yourself below people and feeling all shaken up by that. So this arrogance and pride, this boastfulness, this measuring and comparing is getting in your way. It's causing difficulties in your life because it's causing your mind to be shaken up. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have questions on what is personal existence view or conceit, because this is what we're combining and calling the ego. Because now, if you understand after asking questions, what is personal existence view and conceit, I'm going to start using this word ego, and you can understand that what I'm describing is these 2 things. So do you guys have any questions on what the ego is or what personal existence view and conceit is? Yes. For those of you guys online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like.
When we talk about the word ego, sometimes we think that it is centralize ourselves, right? But by centralize ourselves mean that we thought we are the most important, or I am the most important thing in the environment at that moment. For example, like when I am having a dinner in the restaurant, as you said, because there's a stain on the shirt, maybe because I think that I am the most important thing or person in that restaurant. That's why everybody's going to look at me. Mm-hmm. That's why I cannot let that kind of thing happen. Like this is like a centralized myself. When we talk about conceit, you said it could be superior to other people or maybe inferior to others, which means that I might think myself is like lower, below somebody. Mm-hmm. So it's not like or the original thought that I had about the ego. It's not centralized myself. It's like I'm not that important to the other people. So is this a little bit contradict that when we talk about ego, is centralized, decentralized, or
are you saying sensualize?
Yes, centralized. So
Are you saying
assist.
central, like CENTRAL, or
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
okay, central.
I centered myself, right?
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So the personal existence view is the one mostly that you're talking about, is that the individual is identifying with this body or this mind as who they are, and they're wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. The conceit is something separate. The conceit is putting yourself above and below people. The personal existence view isn't what's doing that. The personal existence view is just wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. The ego, or I'm sorry, the conceit is the thing that's wanting to be either above or below people. And that's why when we talked about the lower and higher fetters yesterday, that's why the personal existence view has to be eliminated first before you can eliminate the conceit. Because one of the things that the mind can be conceited about is your appearance, for example. Right. And now you have this conceit about your appearance. Think I'm so beautiful, I'm so handsome, things like this. I'm wanting to be perceived as I'm so intelligent, I'm so smart, I'm so wise. That's part of the conceit. But there's also personal existence view in there too. So when we're talking about the ego and we're talking about any one particular situation that you're involved in, you can have more than one fetter involved. So while you're having this experience where somebody says to you something positive or negative about that clothing that you're wearing, you can get really frustrated. Just say that this says something negative about this clothing, you could get really frustrated about that. Primarily, that's your personal existence view, because the mind's wanting to be perceived a certain way. But then the ego can come in and be like, who do they think they're talking to? Who do they think they are? Don't they know who I am? Right? This is the conceit coming in, thinking that you're above people, right? So there's personal existence view involved, and there's also conceit involved too. So it's not typically just one fetter that's involved in any one particular situation where the mind's becoming discontent, particularly early in practice.
So if I think myself is always below someone, is that also ego?
Yes, that's the
Yes.
conceit. Because if you put yourself below people, your mind is still having conceit where you're measuring and comparing yourself to other people. And now that person thinks of themselves as being below others, and now you're shaken up. And it's just as detrimental as putting yourself above people. When you put yourself above people and you look down on people, those people will tend to push you away. They don't like that, right? But when you put yourself below people, people will think you lack confidence, and they will be disinterested in hiring you for a job or promoting you at your workforce or something like this. So putting yourself above or below is having just the same amount of danger and detriment to your day-to-day life as putting yourself above. So putting yourself below is going to cause just as much problems as putting yourself above. And that's why you got to get rid of all of it, where you don't cling to this body and this mind as who you are. You don't have this arrogance and pride and boastfulness thinking I'm so great, I'm so right, and everybody else is wrong, because you're going to be pushed aside. You'll see when I'm going to talk about the symptoms and the problematic situations that you're experiencing, because there's multiple that you're experiencing because of that. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just a quick question about the word ego. Why do you choose to use the word ego rather than, for example, self?
Because the word ego is something that people use today, and they're very familiar with it. Or I shouldn't say they're very familiar with it. They're using it a lot today, but they don't necessarily know what it means 100%. By the Buddha having these understanding of personal existence view and conceit, we can see the ego is that we're calling the ego is comprised of these two separate things. And now when we understand them as two separate things, we can actually address it more readily, because if we keep combining it as the ego, then we're not going to be able to see these two separate pieces. So because people use this word today, I need to use it in order to be able to help people to understand what they're talking about is really personal existence view and conceit, and then help them understand what those symptoms are and help them understand how to eliminate it. So I use it because other people use it, and now they can understand what that means and how to actually dissolve it and eliminate it. Mm-hmm.
Relating to that, in Buddhism, I'm sort of vaguely familiar with this idea of losing yourself, you know, sort of that this ego, you were losing your ego, and sort of forgetting yourself. You're more mindful, you're more connected with the outside world than yourself, maybe. Is that the goal ultimately, to lose sort of a sense of yourself, or just sort of shedding this defensive ego part?
What you're eliminating is the clinging to what we call the 5 aggregates or 5 criteria. The Buddha taught these 5 aggregates, or these 5 criteria of what makes a living being a living being. And your mind will tend to cling to those. What the 5 aggregates are is your physical form, your perceptions or your views and opinions about the world, your feelings, your choices and decisions, and the consciousness itself. These are 5 aggregates. These are 5 criteria of what makes a living being a living being. Form, feelings, perceptions, view, or your choices and decisions, which are called volitional formations, and then there's consciousness. And your mind will tend to cling to these things, identifying with them as who you are as a person. So you'll cling to this physical form, thinking that this is who you are, or you'll cling to your feelings. I am mad. I am angry. I am frustrated. You'll cling to your perceptions, like say your political views. Those are your views and opinions about the world. Like in America, it would be, I am Democrat. I am Republican. Or I am a Buddhist, right? Any of this I am about your perceptions about the world. Choices and decisions you make, like I am an alcoholic. No, you're not an alcoholic. You just made decisions in the past to use drugs and alcohol, and that's unwise. But we don't need to identify with that as who we are as a person. And then there's the consciousness itself, which is the self-identity, like I am Chinese, or I am Icelandic, I am American, right? So these 5 aggregates are what comprise this being, and the mind's going to tend to cling to these, identifying with those as who you are as a person. So it's a matter of shedding that and no longer viewing these things as who you are, while still understanding you need to take care of this, right? This body is not me. It doesn't define who I am, but it's wise to take care of it. Take a shower, brush your teeth, comb your hair, whatever it is that you do, right? You need to do these things, but you don't identify with this as who you are. And that's where the peace and joy comes in. So when you talk about losing yourself, you're losing the perception that any of this stuff is you, but you're still understanding that there is a being in existence, and I need to take care of this being, because that's a matter of loving kindness and compassion towards this being. So when we say lose yourself, you're not just kind of like turning into a blob or anything like that. You're just eliminating the clinging and craving for permanence, for people to perceive you in a certain way through these 5 aggregates. And you no longer identify with these 5 aggregates as who you are. You understand you have certain views and opinions, but you don't cling to them and advocate for them and fight and try to convince people that your views and opinions are right? That's the ego that's doing that. That's the personal existence view, but it's got the conceit in there too. So if I just called this the self, it's not fully describing what's truly going on. It's only describing one component of it. There's this conceit in there too. So that's why this word ego is actually beneficial to some degree.
So I think ego is a very stupid thing, because most of my pains of life comes from my ego. I think dissolving it is absolutely necessary. But I'm still very confused. First off, about the personal existence view, I think it's starting from our parents who start to build that for us. Babies don't really know what is I, what is me. And I think that's starting from the parents, they're still starting to do that. And about the second point is conceit. It's about I'm better, I'm smarter thing. I think it's, for me, as used to be a Chinese student, studying in a Chinese school, that's part of what school do. They compare people, compare all the students and label them who is smarter, who is more stupid. And I think that they do that because in our culture, we just encourage competition. And the future system, I mean, the society, the job side, they just manipulate that kind of conceit, ego, to slave people to make them work or something like that. So my confusion is without number one, are the parents doing something wrong? Are the system, I mean the society, the school doing something wrong? Are they wrong? Yeah. I mean, without the whole idea of ego, will still the current system still work, or it will just break down? Yeah, that's my question.
Okay. So I don't think about it as right and wrong, and that your parents have done something wrong or society has done something wrong. It's just that everybody's functioning through whatever wisdom they have or the lack of wisdom that they have. And because human beings conform to what's going on around them, as we come into this world and we see people functioning through ego, a new human being will tend to adopt that in their own mind, thinking that that's a wise way to be. So because human beings left to their own devices are going to function very much like an animal, an unenlightened human being will function very much like an animal. In your animal consciousness, there's this conceit in this personal existence view. So a human being's mind that is untrained will have personal existence view and ego. And now society, because the mind is not being trained, of each individual person isn't being trained, society will do things that reinforce that. So that's where you talk about competition, or like when we were born, we were given a label. I don't know your label, but my label was David, right? So this is part of the personal existence view, because now when we get that label, now we start adopting character and personality around that. So it's not about our parents or societies doing something wrong. It's just that this is the way it is because human beings are conforming to what's going on around them. If people eliminate their ego, society will function a million times better, because the ego is what causes things like war, right? Now we're going to fight because my country is better than your country, or, we got to fight on our economic policies, or on our military needs to fight and prove who's strong and who's not, right? So this ego and this conceit is actually causing many complications in the world. And the current system that you're talking about, where the way the world currently works in terms of the way people currently function, without ego, that's not going to happen that way. But that's a very good thing, because now we'll see less and less wars, we'll see less and less fights, we'll see less and less people battling each other to try to prove who's better and who's not. But there'll still be wise decision making to grow and develop as human beings, because oftentimes people are motivated by this conceit. They're wanting to prove that they are smarter than other people. But if you do that, you're also going to experience painful situations because of that conceit too, where what you can get to is, rather than basing your decisions in conceit, and I want to be a doctor because I want to prove to my family and other people how smart I am. Instead of that, it's, I would like to be a doctor so that I can help people to heal and have better health, right? So people can operate through wise decision making rather than through ego. Because as long as people are operating through ego, it's going to produce unwholesome results for them. So the current system of the way people function, that would all break down, but it's going to be built on something that is better, which is wise decision making. Okay, you're welcome. Some other questions?
Yeah, it's about a bit confused on the first factor, long Sao, and the eighth factor, because if it is also a little bit about the course about the class we have yesterday. Because if I eliminate long Sao, then I won't have conceit as well. I mean, like because there's no self. So
Mhm.
this, it seems like non-self is even a higher level than conceit.
Okay. So not the personal existence view is purely your mind clinging to your five aggregates, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. The conceit is the arrogance and the pride, the measuring and comparing. So you could get rid of wanting other people to see you a certain way, but you could still have ego about other things, or you could still have conceit about other things. Like say you're, I don't think you have children, but let's just say you had children, right? And say your children get into a very good university. You could have conceit about that. Like, look how great I am. My child got into a really great college, a really great university. Has nothing to do with your physical self-image or your self-identity. It has to do with somebody else. So the conceit can still be in the mind while there's personal existence view is gone. So if you get rid of personal existence view, that's one step in the right direction of getting rid of conceit. But because you've gotten rid of personal existence view doesn't mean you've gotten rid of conceit. You can still have conceit about other things than your self-image and your self-identity.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry. Hi. I'm not good at speaking English. I will try my best to make me understood. I think some people say that having ego is a bad thing, but sometimes I don't think so. I think ego makes you know who you are. I think as a person, knowing who you are is important. As a person, as I is important for me. So that's the conceit, like arrogance, pride, judging, measuring. I think as a person full of the emotions is normal. So I think just how to make good use of the ego is important. So, and this emotions, just like you said before, just like let it go, this bad emotions. But I think emotions is important for people. So I think having ego maybe is good sometimes. Yeah.
Do you have a question for me?
I think if I think that having ego is good or bad, but some people say me is having ego and always be the danger of myself. I think I is the most important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you have a question for me? Something that you would like to know from me? Because right now you're just saying a statement about what you think and what your opinions are. But if everybody said if everybody shared their views and opinions, then people aren't learning what they need to learn, because what you're describing is what the unenlightened mind is going to think. But if you're interested in getting to peace and joy, you're going to need to ask questions to be able to understand how to move from this current thinking that you have to this better way of life. Because as long as you keep thinking in understanding the world in the way that you're currently thinking, you're never going to be able to get to this better understanding. So usually when students pick up the microphone, they're going to ask a question rather than just share their opinions and views of how they currently think.
My question is that just having ego is having ego is bad or good for me. Yeah. Because the people around me say that I have ego. It's they said many they judge me, but I don't I ignore them. I just having ego. So I having ego is bad or good? This is my question. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think it is good or bad. What I think about is wise or unwise. It's unwise to continue to have ego, because as long as you have ego, you'll think I am important, I am great, I am better than other people, and now you will look down on people and you won't be able to see people in a loving way. That's what I'm going to start explaining to you now, is what are the problems and complications that you experience because of the ego. So maybe I'll just move into that, and that'll help you to be able to see it better, because it's not about good or bad. It's about what's going to promote the peacefulness and joy in your mind to be able to get to a point where you don't experience anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings. Because while right now you think that those feelings are helpful for you or beneficial in some way, or using your words, good, that they're not bad, what you're going to potentially be able to see if you keep looking at this closely is your discontent feelings of anger, sadness, frustration, and others are just getting in your way of being able to have a very wonderful and fulfilling life, because those painful feelings are just keeping you bogged down into the experiencing that over and over and over again, and having difficulties and struggles in day-to-day life, where you can get to the point where your mind is bright and cheerful and glad and uplifted. But as long as your mind has this anger and frustration and all these other feelings, it's just going to be broken relationship after broken relationship after broken relationship, painful experiences over and over and over again, and you'll never be able to really build up a fulfilling and sustaining life for yourself where you can be harmonious with everybody around you. So let me talk about more of the symptoms, because that's not something that we've talked about yet. You have a question, Leo? Okay, let's see what Leo's question is.
For example, going back to the question before, when the personal existence view is gone, you have solved, could this being still think like, oh, this being is so good in sport or so handsome or whatever? Could this be still in the mind?
Yeah, it can still be there, that you're still putting yourself above or below people, that the personal existence view is just the mind perceiving that this body is you, this mind is you, this self-image is you, this self-identity is you, and now you're wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and you can only be comfortable when you're being perceived that way. The ego or arrogance is putting yourself above people or below people. So even though you aren't having that craving for other people to perceive you a certain way, even though that's gone, there's still this ego thinking that I'm better or worse than other people.
Okay. For example, having the conceit of I'm so good at, this being is so good in sport.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't this being then prefer to be good in sport? Or let's say this being thinks I'm so handsome. Wouldn't he make his appearance handsome because he prefers to stay handsome? Because he has this ego to I'm so handsome. I think he's holding on to this conceit, right? To this view.
It's not a matter of the action. That's where sometimes you get confused, that it's not a matter of what you choose to do. It's a matter of what the mind's doing and what the mind's thinking. So even though you have no let's just say someone has no personal existence view and they have no conceit, this person will still choose to comb their hair and look nice when they go outside, because they understand that that's a wise thing to do, because other people are judging them and looking down on them or looking up to them. And even though for themselves, they don't experience any feelings or complications related to that, they know that when they go to immigration, for example, to get a visa, that it's wise to have on nice clothes and comb their hair. But when they show up, if someone looks at them funny or somebody says something degrading about their clothing, they don't experience any discontentedness whatsoever. So it's not about the action of choosing to put on nice clothes and comb your hair, because the mind understands, hey, I'm going to immigration, I need this visa, and I shouldn't show up in ripped up shorts and a ripped up t-shirt with, black coal all over my face and my hair all messed up. I need to show up looking presentable so that I can get this visa. So it's not about the action of what you choose to do. It's about how the mind processes the situation that you're experiencing. And that's where eliminating personal existence view and conceit is going to allow the mind to stay peaceful and joyful. Mm-hmm. Joe? Mm-hmm.
Hypothetically saying, if somebody was able to remove their personal existence view and work through the first fetter, and let's say they wanted to procreate and have a child, would that thought be an unwholesome thought arising?
About having a child?
Correct.
There's nothing unwholesome about having a child. It's a craving, right? The mind is longing, yearning for this thing, or it might think that this external thing is going to provide some lasting satisfaction, but it's not necessarily right or wrong to have a child. It's not part of your personal existence view. It's part of central desire, where the mind's longing, yearning for this being, potentially, right? Some people have a longing, yearning for this being. So now they're going to try to create this being, thinking that this being is going to bring me some kind of satisfaction. And that's where the mind is attached and having craving in this situation. But sometimes that's what an individual needs to do in order to eliminate that craving. Because if you have a craving for children, if you have children, you'll eliminate that craving. You'll have it already. You won't need to have a child because you've already got it, right?
Yeah, the next question is, if the person has eliminated his personal existence view, when he creates a new conscious with his child, will that child take on the non-existence view as well, or will he come into the world with conceit and an ego?
Oh no, it's completely separate. Like your consciousness as a father isn't, or even a mother, isn't just being transferred to the child. That child is still an independent being with their own mind and their own pollutions of mind.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now let's just talk about the symptoms, because I think this will help you guys some more. So the ego stands in the way of being able to see true reality. What the ego is going to do is it's going to project its unwholesome qualities onto other people, and it's going to read that as coming from the other person, when in reality it's coming from your own mind. It's like projecting onto somebody else and then reading the reflection coming back is coming from the other person, when in reality it's coming from your own mind. So for example, with this ego in the mind, let's just say you're in a business meeting and somebody walks in, and this man or woman walk in, and man, they have the nicest clothes, their hair, every single little hair is in exactly the right spot. They have the nicest complexion. They smell so great. And they walk in, and they walk into the business meeting and they sit down, and you see this occur. And your mind might think, wow, look at her trying to look so beautiful. Wow, look at him trying to look handsome. That's all coming from your own mind. The only thing that's happened is somebody walked into the room. That's all that's happened. But your mind, wanting to be perceived by others as beautiful or handsome, you just projected that unwholesome quality on the other person, and you read that reflection coming back as coming from them, when in reality it's coming from your own mind. Your own mind wants to look beautiful and handsome to everybody around. But now when somebody who walked in, who's actually you consider to be handsome or beautiful, you're like, look at them trying to look so handsome. Look at them trying to look so beautiful. When in reality, it's your own mind that's doing that. So now in this meeting, you just projected your perceptions onto this person. You're reading that as coming from them. And now when they speak up in the meeting to give their idea, you're bitter and harsh and hostile to them, right? And now you're having unskillful conduct that your coworkers are seeing, and now it's affecting your profession, right? Because now you can't move up in your profession because you're being bitter and harsh and hostile to this person who just walked into the room. And sure, they look beautiful. Sure, they look handsome, but that's your mind that's trying to look so handsome and beautiful in front of everyone, not necessarily them. And even if they are doing that, so what? That's their choice, right? You don't have to project your unwholesome quality of, I want to be beautiful, I want to be handsome, onto somebody else. Because now in that business meeting, you're going to be functioning in ways that are unwise, and it's going to affect you, right? So your mind can project these unwholesome qualities onto people, reading that as coming from them, when in reality it's coming from your own mind. It's like looking out at the world through a dirty window. You're looking out at everybody else through this dirty window, through this ego, when in reality it's coming from your own mind. It's not coming from other people. So as long as you have this ego in the way, it stands in the way of you seeing true reality of what actually happened. Somebody just walked into the room. That's all that happened. Somebody walked into the room, right? So the mind's going to have this judgment. When it has ego, it's going to have this judgment where you're looking down on people and you're measuring and comparing people of who's above you and who's below you. And you need to get rid of that judging where you're measuring and comparing people. you need to get to the point where you don't allow your mind to cling to any perceptions, because that's what the mind did in this example. Is the mind had a certain perception. What a perception is a belief or opinion that may or may not even be true. The mind had the belief or opinion that this person who walked in who looks beautiful or handsome, the mind's perception is they're trying to look beautiful and handsome. That's a belief or opinion that may or may not even be true. And if you cling to this perception, you're going to make unwise decisions that produces unwholesome results, like being bitter and harsh and hostile in the business meeting. If you cling to your perceptions, not just in this example, but any situation, it's going to lead to unwise decisions. I'll give you a few examples. Let's just say you have a child and you've asked your child, hey, I need you to clean your room. I'm going to go downstairs and cook some food. I need you to take the next hour and clean up your room. They're like, all right, mommy, daddy, I'll clean my room, right? So now you go make your food and you come back an hour later and you open the bedroom door to your child's room and they have books all over the floor. And if you cling to your perception might be they did not clean their room. That's your view and opinion. They did not clean their room. And now because you have a craving for them to clean their room, you might get angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. And now you start yelling and hollering at your child, damaging your relationship with your child, right? This would be unwise. And it was you clinging to your perception that they didn't clean their room that's motivating all this unskillful conduct. Where what you could do is you could understand, I was not here in this room for the last 1 hour. I have no idea what transpired here. When I open the door and I see books all over the floor, I need to ask my child, hey, what happened? I thought you were going to clean your room, right? I'm asking questions now because I wasn't here. I don't know the truth. And my child says, yes, mom and dad, I did clean my room. Actually, right before you walked in, I bumped into the bookshelf and all the books fell all over the floor. I spent the last hour cleaning my room and now I was just getting ready to pick up these books and put them away, but you walked into the room. And it's like, oh, okay, I see, right? So now if you don't cling to your perceptions, you can actually make wise decisions. Here's another example. If you're training to be a police officer, they teach you not to cling to your perceptions because you're making life or death decisions. And if you cling to your perceptions, you can make a life or death decision that negatively impacts your life. So for example, if I was a police officer and I was dispatched to a convenience store and over the radio, it says that this convenience store is being robbed at gunpoint, we need you to go take care of this. Lights and sirens rushing down to the convenience store. I rush into the convenience store and open up the door and I see someone in a black hoodie with a gun pointing at someone on the ground, and the person on the ground is shot and now they're bleeding out. Well, if I cling to my perceptions, I might sling open the door, pull out my gun and start shooting this person. And I might have actually just shot an innocent person. Because the person who's in the black hoodie with the gun could be the cashier. The cashier might have gotten the gun away from the robber, and now the robber's on the ground with the bullet hole, right? So that's why police are taught not to cling to their perceptions, because they might have just killed an innocent person, and now they're going to end up in jail for the rest of their life because of it. Instead, what a police officer is trained to do is pull their gun and say, police, police, put down the gun. Well, if you're the cashier and you look and you see the police, you're going to say, thank goodness you're here, and you're going to gladly put your gun down, right? But if you're the robber and you hear police, 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 you're probably going to turn and point your gun at the police, and that's when you're going to get shot and killed, right? So police officers are taught not to cling to their perceptions because they're making life or death decisions, and every single decision that you make, you need to base your decisions in truth. If you're making decisions based on your perceptions, you don't know whether it's true or false. So if you make the decision that this person walking into the conference room, look at them trying to look so handsome and beautiful, you don't know that. All that's happened is somebody walked into the room. And even if you did know that to be true, so what? That's their choice. You just maintain your peacefulness and maintain your joy. No need to allow your ego to cast its unwholesome qualities onto the other person. And then read that perception coming back as coming from the other person when in reality it's coming from your own mind, right? So the perceptions, if you cling to those, they inhibit you from seeing true reality. And now you can't be loving and kind with all people. And now you make bitter, harsh interactions with this person, and it damages your relationships in your workforce and your profession. And now you don't get promoted in the way that you could. So you need to eliminate this judgment, and you need to eliminate clinging to perceptions that are based in your own ego, and any perceptions whatsoever. You need to eliminate that. You need to get to the point where you're practicing discernment, which is wise decision making. And you can't make wise decisions when your mind's angry and frustrated and having ego and all these other things. So that's why it's so important to get rid of this stuff out of your mind. So not only does the mind project its unwholesome qualities onto others and read that coming back as coming from the other person, it can also project its wholesome qualities onto others and then have a craving for everyone to do these things. So say, for example, somebody considered themselves to be vegan, like I am vegan. And now I think that I'm so wholesome because I don't eat animals. And I'm so wholesome. I'm so great. Look at me. I eat plants. And everybody else should eat plants too. And because they don't eat plants, they're a bad person. And now I'm going to look down on them. And I'm going to be bitter and harsh and hostile to them. So not only does the ego cast its unwholesome qualities onto others, but it casts its wholesome qualities onto others. And it thinks everybody should do things my way. And just because I'm vegan, everyone else should be vegan too, right? This is the mind's ego. So what you're probably coming to the conclusion of, and you're already there, is that the ego serves no purpose. It's just standing in your way of having fulfilling and satisfying relationships with the people around you. You need to be able to eliminate your ego. And there's techniques for you to be able to do that. And that's what I'm going to spend the rest of our time talking about, is how to eliminate this. Because as long as it's in your mind, it's going to keep tripping you up and you'll have difficulties and struggles in your relationships. But before I do, let me just stop here and see if you guys have any questions on the symptoms that you're experiencing and the difficulties because of it. Because this is some of those, but there's others as well that your mind's experiencing because of it. So do you guys have any questions on the difficulties and struggles that the mind has because of the ego? No questions? Okay. Looks like we have a question coming in here. Let me just see. Okay. Looks like Melody has a question. Could you share a bit more about the difference between ego and self-identity, who I am, what I believe? So the self-identity is the personal existence view that we're combining together with conceit to call ego. That's what we're calling the ego. So the ego contains self-identity, but the self-identity by itself is not the entire ego, right? So you have the ego, which comprises the personal existence view and conceit, but the self-identity is just one portion of the personal existence view, because personal existence view is the mind clinging to the self-image and self-identity. So self-identity is just one component of the overall ego. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions here. Okay, I don't see any other questions. All right, so now we're going to talk about the elimination of personal existence view and conceit. We're going to split them back out so that now you can see them individually, because there's individual symptoms that you experience because of personal existence view and conceit, and there's individual ways for you to actually eliminate them individually. So this personal existence view, where the mind's clinging to this body or this mind is who you are, there's receiving guidance to use a meditation to realize non-self. There's a specific meditation that the Buddha taught in order to train your mind to let go of this personal existence view. And I'm going to teach that as part of this course. I think it's Friday morning that I teach that. And we're going to do it together. If you guys would like, we can do it together. So you guys can learn about that and how to do that, because that's going to strip away this idea that this body or this mind is you. You can also change your language that you use to disassociate with this idea that there is a self here around your relationships, objects, or various life situations. So, for example, in the English language, we say things like, I am hungry, or I am thirsty. This is actually not true because there's no I here. The mind is clinging to this idea that there is an I. True reality is that this body needs food. That's true reality. I am not hungry. The body needs food. That's what's true reality. I am not thirsty. The body needs water. That's true reality. So we walk around saying things like, I am hungry, I am thirsty, and that reinforces personal existence view. So if you start changing your language a bit, it will help you to disassociate with this personal existence view. Instead of thinking, I am angry, true reality is the mind is experiencing anger. That's true reality. Or I am frustrated. True reality is the mind is experiencing frustration. That's true reality. So the more you use this kind of thing, the better. Or instead of saying, can you hand me my phone? You could say, could you hand me the phone? Right? Disassociate with this mine, right? In the Thai language, which has been around for about 300 to 500 years, they've actually created the Thai language with the understanding of Buddhism. Buddhism has been around for 800 to 1200 years. When we talk in Thai, we tend to talk in the third person. So when my son comes home from school, I don't say, how was your day at school? I say, how was Bailan's day at school? That's the Thai language, right? It's how was Bailan's day at school? Talking about him in the third person, where the English language isn't set up that way. Or I don't know about Chinese and how Chinese or other languages that you guys speak, I don't know how it's set up, but you're going to need to look at the languages that you speak, because more likely than not, you're saying things like, I am hungry, I am thirsty, I am angry, I am frustrated. And this is just reinforcing the personal existence view, where you would like to shed that. And you can come up with other ways of talking about these things. And it works in a good 95, 98, 99% of the situations. But there's some situations where it doesn't work. Like if I was to introduce you to Bailan, I would say, this is my son Bailan. That's what I need to say. Because true reality is, this is the being that I contributed sperm to create over 13 years ago. And if I introduced them that way to you guys, you'd be like, whoa, this is kind of weird. Like, what is this guy talking about? So I need to say, this is my son, Bailan, right? But my mind understands he's not mine. He doesn't belong to me, right? So you need to be able to get to the point where you shed this personal existence view, where your mind's not clinging to these types of words, because otherwise it's just going to reinforce personal existence view in your mind. So you can disassociate with this in the way that you talk, in the way that you communicate. And as you do this, it'll work in about 98, 99% of the situations. Then you're going to need to develop the perception of impermanence through deep observation in the world around you, because the mind, having personal existence view, is to cling and hold on to the self-image and the self-identity. So by having this deep perception of impermanence, where the mind understands that things are constantly changing, the mind can let go of this personal existence view, because the mind is going to tend to cling to this body, wanting it to be permanent, or cling to this identity, wanting that to be permanent. But if you develop the perception of impermanence in the mind, now the mind is more willing to let go, understanding that everything is impermanent around you. You can wear simple clothing to make your appearance look simple. Because one of the things that the mind does, because of its personal existence view, is you'll stand in front of the closet, you'll think, who am I going to see today, and how do I want to look, right? And you're going to pick out the clothes that you want to wear. And that's the mind doing that, right? So you can actually eliminate this. That's why the monks wear robes. They wear simple robes, because they're training their mind to not project a self-image, that they can train their mind that it doesn't matter how they look. Right? This is why they're shaving their hair. This is why they're wearing simple clothes. Well, you might not be interested in wearing simple rag robes or the same clothes every day. You could if you'd like to, but one of the things you can do is you can take your current clothes, you can stack them up, and now you can just pick off the top, because then you're not giving your mind an opportunity to decide what it is that you're going to wear. Because what your mind's going to want to do is you're going to want to reach into the middle of the stack and you're going to want to pull out that shirt to go see those people that you're going to see today. And the reason why I know your mind's going to do this is because my mind used to do this. Even these white clothes, I stacked them up. But when I first started wearing them, I noticed that there was a certain person I was going to go see today. And I knew that there was this one certain shirt that fit better than the others. And I was trying to grab it from the middle of the stack, right? And I needed to cut that off and let it go. Even though all these clothes are technically the same, there were some that fit a little bit better than others because they were a little bit different. There was impermanence. So I was trying to grab that one. So you needed to be able to see that in the moment. So you can stack up your formal clothes, your casual clothes. Don't give your mind an opportunity to pick. Just pick off the top. And that might work in 95, 98% of the situations. But again, if you're going to a job interview or immigration or something like this, and you know you need to look nice for that, wear those clothes that you need to look nice for, right? But then you can go back to your normal method of picking off the top, right? This is going to be able to help train your mind to let go, because clothing, jewelry, makeup, scents, all these things, the mind's going to try to project a certain self-image, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. Same thing with facial hair and head hair, that this is the reason why the Buddha shaved his hair, is that it helps to train the mind to not project a certain self-image in the world. And usually men have a harder time with the idea of shaving their facial hair, where women have a harder time with the idea of shaving their head hair. Sometimes even just talking about it, people kind of cringe and they don't like the idea of doing this. But this is what's going to help you, because you feel uncomfortable walking around without your hair because your mind thinks that this hair is you, that this is who you are. So if you start shaving your hair, this is actually going to help you. And you might do that for a year or two, or who knows how long. And then ultimately you might decide to grow your hair back, but your mind has let go of the idea that this hair is you. So you like to go a period of time, if you can, with shaving your hair, your facial hair and your head hair. You don't have to do this. It's not required of you. But in terms of eliminating personal existence view, these are the two things that you'll see that's the most impactful, is the way that you wear clothing and the way that you wear your hair. If you can modify that, you're going to see the most progress on your journey to eliminating personal existence view. But whether you choose to do that or not, it's a choice for you to make. If you are interested in doing this, but you're a little bit stuck and feeling uncomfortable in doing so, oftentimes what people do is they do it in stages. So say a man has a full mustache and a beard. Typically what they'll do is they'll cut off the sides and go down to a goatee. And then they'll eventually, after several weeks, they'll cut off the part on the chin and they'll just have a mustache, right? And then they'll kind of cut back the mustache. So they'll do this over multiple weeks. Or like a female, they might cut their hair short and then they'll wear that for a few weeks or a month or so, and then they'll cut it shorter and shorter and shorter, and then eventually they'll cut it all off. So it's not so abrupt and so quick. You can do it that way. That works too, but doing it in gradual stages will sometimes help the mind be a bit more comfortable with this. So that's the way that you can implement this. And then anytime you see the mind projecting a self-image or self-identity, in the moment, you'd like to cut it off and let it go. Because all of these things that I was talking about up here, these are all proactive methods of eliminating your personal existence view. This is the way to get ahead of it, right? But also in the moment, you're going to notice personal existence view coming up and you're going to need to cut it off and let it go. So wherever you see your personal existence view coming up, you need to cut it off and let it go. So if you're walking down the street and you hear somebody talking about your nationality and you're noticing the anger and frustration coming up, you need to cut it off and let it go in the moment. That's like real-time training, where these other ones are like proactive training in advance. And then ultimately, seek guidance from a teacher over multiple sessions, because you typically need multiple discussions just to understand what personal existence view is. Then you're going to need multiple discussions to understand how to implement this stuff. So you're going to need help around this. I've had some students take a whole year just to understand what is personal existence view. So you're going to need help along the way. And that's where you reach out to a teacher for help. So do you guys have any questions on the elimination of personal existence view? No questions? You have a question? Yeah.
self-identity. We try to eliminate our self-identity by doing those things. I was wondering, for example, policemen, they have this kind of uniform that, and we can easily identify, okay, he's a policeman. And you talk about the monks that wearing a robe. And to me, it's also quite easy to identify he's in a robe and he probably be a monk. So is this kind of also identity that, why don't they just wear a normal clothes like a t-shirt or something, but they just wear the robe and people can identify them? So
Okay.
I mean, is this also a way to show the identity to the people for the monks?
Okay. So again, it's not about the action of what you're doing, like I was explaining to Leo. It's about what's going on in your mind, right? So the fact that someone's wearing a robe or that I'm wearing white clothes doesn't mean that I'm trying to project a certain image to others. It's what's going on in my own mind, right? So somebody could cling to that orange robe and start seeing it as who they are as a person, right? And now the idea of disrobing and not being a monk anymore and not wearing the robe is very uncomfortable for them, right? This is part of their personal existence view. It can become part of their personal existence view, but it doesn't have to be, right? So like when I first started wearing these clothing, before this, I used to wear very expensive clothing because I had a lot of money as a business person. And when I switched to this clothing, it helped to humble the mind. It also made it a lot easier to pick out clothes in the morning because it was just the same type of clothes. But it was humbling the mind, training the mind to no longer identify with those expensive clothes as who I was as a person, right? So that's what was going on within this mind. But there were some other people who saw me wearing this and they were looking and they're like, look at you trying to look so holy and pure. No, not at all. It's actually just the opposite. Is my mind was stuck in this unwholesomeness and I was trying to train my mind to get rid of all of that. So someone else can look at this being and say, look at him wearing white clothes, thinking he's so special, projecting a certain image. But that's their ego projecting it on me and now reading it as coming from me when it's actually coming from their own mind. They're the ones who are trying to look special, not me. Right? My mind is actually trying to just look simple and basic instead of wearing those expensive clothes that I used to wear. So it's not the fact of whether you wear the uniform or the robe or the white clothes. It's what's going on in your mind. And if you thought as a monk that your mind was clinging to that robe, it would be wise to disrobe for a period of time, train your mind to let it go. And then when your mind let go, if you would still like to be a monk, then go be a monk again, right? But that's not typically what they're being taught. So an individual could cling to it as their identity, but it doesn't have to be. So it's not the action of wearing the robe that determines whether there's self-identity in the mind or not. It's what's going on within one's own mind themselves. And that's why you should never put yourself in a situation where you're judging someone else in their practice because you don't know what's going on in their mind. That's for them to figure out. You just focus on your own practice. Mm-hmm. Yep, you're welcome.
Mr. David, with my experience with the interactions that I've had with monks on the street that are in robes, they're actually responding the opposite of what you're teaching. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Because they're not training their mind through the teachings of the Buddha. You know, the mind might think that every monk is studying the teachings of the Buddha and training their mind, but that would be the permanence that the mind's craving, right? Not every monk is studying the teachings of the Buddha. Not every monk even has access to the teachings of the Buddha. That's the impermanent nature of the world. And the Buddha gives a great analogy on this. I know you've heard me share it many times, but I'll just share it for everyone else, is that the Buddha talks about if he was a cow walking on the earth during the rainy season and the earth was really soft and he was leaving his hoof prints as a cow in the soft earth, and there was a donkey behind him, and this donkey was putting its hooves in the same hoof prints, and the donkey was thinking, I'm a cow, I'm a cow, I'm a cow. The fact that the donkey is putting its hooves in the hoof prints of the cow, and the fact that the donkey thinks, I am a cow, I'm a cow, I'm a cow, does that make the donkey a cow? The answer is no. So just because someone's wearing an orange robe and shaving their hair doesn't mean that they're a monk, right? That's not what determines whether they're a monk. Just because someone's wearing white clothes and shaving their hair doesn't mean that they're a good teacher and they can share the teachings of the Buddha, right? You need to be able to have discernment and wise decision making. So every once in a while, every few years, you'll hear on the news that ordained practitioners were caught using drugs and alcohol. Those aren't monks. Those are individual. That's the donkey, right? They're wearing the robe, they're shaving their hair, they're living at the temple, but they're not monks. They're not learning and practicing the teachings. Sometimes you'll hear that they're having sex, or they're having sex with children even, right? Those people aren't monks. They might be wearing a robe, they might be shaving their hair, they might be living at a temple, but they're not monks. So you need to be able to separate this, where you see someone walking down the street and just because they're wearing an orange robe and shaving their hair doesn't mean they're a monk. They are living in the lifestyle of a monk, but it doesn't mean that they're practicing the teachings as the Buddha prescribed and as the Buddha taught. So if someone understands the teachings of the Buddha the way that he taught, they would be practicing in this way. But unfortunately, very few people study the original words of the Buddha. So you'll see lots of anomalies where people aren't practicing the teachings. You'll see monks smoking cigarettes, hitting dogs, gambling. Sometimes you'll see these kinds of things. It's always unfortunate when that's occurring, but that's on that person. That's their practice. It has nothing to do with you or me or your practice to get to enlightenment. If that's where they are in their journey, then that's where they are in their journey. We don't look down on them. We don't look up to them. We just understand that that's where they are in their journey, and you just stay focused on your growth and your development. Mm-hmm.
I find there are always two voices inside my mind, and they are contradictory. And one voice just keeps saying to myself that you should be working hard, you should be successful, you should earn lots of money, things like that. And when it comes to this point, another voice will jump out and say, you should just lie down and do nothing, and good to be a loser, just relax and enjoy the rest of your life. And are they both of my ego, or should I eliminate both of them?
It's definitely both craving, and that's the two opposite sides of the spectrum, where the mind's chasing, but then also that other side you talked about is all the way over here, the dullness, the lethargic, just sitting around. You would like to eliminate both of that. You would like to come to the middle, where you're gradually pursuing goals and objectives through wise decisions. There's no harm in having money and being wealthy. In fact, an enlightened being can be wealthy. It's just that they've earned their money ethically and morally responsibly, and they're not tied to their money. They're willing to give and share it with other people. So that's the difference, is that if you're just chasing, and you're basing your emotions on whether you get the money or not, that's where your mind's having craving. But if you're all the way over here, where you could care less about your financial success in the world and where you are financially, that's not wise either. So you need to come to the middle, where you're gradually working towards improvement in your life, in the way that you live your life, but you're not tied to your money, that you're making your money ethically and morally responsibly based on the way the Buddha teaches, where you're not causing harm to other beings, but you're also not tied to it, that you're willing to share with other people. So coming to the middle, that's where you'll be peaceful, because you can't be peaceful chasing, and you can't be peaceful over here either. So there can be ego involved in that, right? I want to be the richest person. I want to have the nicest car. I want to wear all these nice clothes and nice jewelry. There can definitely be ego in that, but there doesn't have to be. You can pursue increased levels of wealth without ego. And you can even pursue increased levels of wealth without craving, desire, attachment too. That's possible as well. But the unenlightened mind doesn't typically know how to do that. And that's what you're doing as part of your training on the path, is learning how to come to the middle and pursue these things with wise decision making, rather than with craving, or rather than just being lazy or dull or lethargic. You're welcome.
I wanted to share that I had personal existence view quite strong when I went out for the break, and I went to the toilet. And when I was washing my hands, I sprinkled water on my trousers, and it looked like that I peed myself. Right?
We were about to talk about that, Lino. I'm just kidding. I didn't even notice.
Yeah, and I feel somehow uncomfortable in going back to the temple, and people see that.
Uh-huh.
So, what would be the best way to address that? Just walk in the temple or walk around and
Yeah.
just be fine that whatever people think doesn't matter.
Yeah. In fact, I would suggest you go do it again. Go put some more water on you. Like, put some water there and walk around like that. It's good. It is going to train your mind to let go, where you don't want to be perceived by others in a certain way. So sometimes what you need to do in order to train your mind to let go is put it in the situation that it doesn't want to be in. So since you notice that this is triggering your personal existence view, if you put your mind in that situation, it'll actually be really helpful for you. Mm-hmm.
Couldn't it maybe also damage my reputation a little bit or something?
Well, if other people judge you based on your clothing, then you're probably not interested in being involved in those people anyway. Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So now let's talk about conceit. We already talked about what it is. This is now how to eliminate it. Okay. So remember, the conceit is the arrogance, the pride, the measuring and comparing, putting yourself above people or below people. So you need to be able to humble the mind, because as long as you're putting yourself above people or below people, you can't live harmoniously with all beings. So one of the things you can do to humble the mind is use words like thank you, sorry, speak politely using sir and ma'am. These are all things that people used to do quite a bit in the old days, but we've kind of gotten away from that. So you're going to need to look at your languages that you speak and look at ways to be respectful and polite with people, because being respectful to someone doesn't mean that you're putting yourself below them. Sometimes people think that being respectful means to put yourself below them. That's not true. You can be respectful to people without putting yourself below them. So you can use words like sir and ma'am. I even do this with my son. My son's 13 now, but I started teaching him formally when he was 6. Even at the age of 6, I used to call him sir. He'd bring me a glass of water. I'd say, thank you, sir. I really appreciate that. Right? Because now more and more he gets used to people talking that way, and then he starts to talk that way. But then also when people aren't talking that way, he knows that, and he knows what it's like to be around people who are bitter and harsh and hostile and disrespectful. So you can speak this way with the people around you, even children. This will help to humble your mind. And remember, humbling your mind and being respectful doesn't mean you're putting yourself below people. It just means that you're choosing to give respect to people. Sometimes people think that, they're saying, don't respect anybody until they respect you first. Right? Don't respect others until they respect you first. Have any of you guys ever been taught that? Sometimes people are taught that, right? Well, if you're taught that, if everybody was to practice that in the world, that means nobody's respecting anybody, right? Because everybody's like, well, I'm not going to respect you until you respect me. Well, I'm not going to respect you until you respect me, right? So now everybody's stuck in their corners and nobody's respecting anybody. So an enlightened being doesn't do that. They break through that wall and they understand that whatever they put out, it's going to come back to them. So if you put out respect, that's what will come back to you, right? Not that you should expect that, but that's what you would like to be able to understand, that as you put out more and more respect, that's what's going to come back to you. So you would like to treat everyone with respect and politeness, even when they disagree with you, especially when they disagree with you. Sometimes people think you can only be respectful and kind and polite when people agree with you. And sometimes people even think that when you're disagreeing, that means you're disrespectful. So like when you're disagreeing with someone, that's not being disrespectful. Just because you disagree and you have a different opinion, that's just impermanence. That's not disrespectful to disagree. It's the method of your disagreement that determines whether or not you're being respectful or not in your disagreement, right? So you can actually disagree with someone respectfully. So we can choose to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful even with people we disagree with, especially with people that you disagree with. Because when you disagree, that's causing your mind to have your craving in there is going to get triggered. And now you might be angry and frustrated, irritated with that person. And you might find it difficult to be respectful with them. But if you can train your mind to be respectful to everybody, especially when someone's disrespectful to you. Oh, it's really easy to be respectful to this person who you agree with. So if you can be respectful and polite to this person who you disagree with and that they disagree with you, you'll find it really easy to be respectful to these people over here that agree with you. So you can learn and train your mind to do this. One of the best things you can do to eliminate your conceit, and it'll take you all of about 5 minutes to set up, and then you can reap the rewards of this long into the future, is to sleep in a low position on the floor. This is why a lot of Asian cultures, they sleep on the floor. Right here in Thailand, it's actually very challenging to find a bed that is high. Right, most of the beds here in Thailand are at your knee height and below, and that's what you would like to do. You can get rid of your frame, your box spring, just put the mattress right on the floor. And I know for some people, especially from Western culture, this might sound a little bit odd, that sleeping in a different position can actually change how your mind thinks and processes the world around you. Yes, it will. This is one of the best things you can do, is sleep in a low position on the floor. Because each time you go down into your bed and you get up out of your bed, it's humbling the mind. This isn't going to happen in 1 week or 1 month, but over the course of multiple months and years, it will humble the mind. So it'll take you all of 5 minutes to set this up, and then you'll reap the rewards of that long into the future. So it would be wise to set up a low position for you to sleep in, and you'll notice that this is going to help to humble your mind. If there are certain tasks that you think are beneath you, it would be wise for you to do those. Like if you think like washing dishes is beneath you, or cleaning the bathroom, or scrubbing the floor, or scrubbing the toilet, if you think these kinds of things are beneath you, you should do those kinds of things. So if there's any task like that, it would be helpful for you to do those things because it's going to humble the mind. You can listen to people teach you wisdom without any interest in teaching them anything at all. Because sometimes when people show up to a learning event, they actually think that their job is to teach the teacher. They think with their ego and their conceit that what I think is best and I know what's right, and now I'm coming to a learning environment, but I'm going to try to teach this teacher what I know, right? Even people coming here to the temple, sometimes they do that, right? They come here and they try to teach me what they think they know. What you would like to do is put your mind in a situation where you're regularly learning from people and you're allowing your mind to be able to do that. And even if you disagree with that person, it's okay. Just learn from that person without any interest in teaching them anything at all. This will help to humble the mind. You can wash people's feet. This will help you to humble your mind. Thai people usually do this with their parents, with their grandparents, with teachers or people like this. Somebody who's impacted their life throughout the year, they will tend to go to that person and wash their feet as a sign of respect and appreciation. Again, you're not putting yourself below them. You're just doing this action in order to humble your mind. So like maybe on New Year's Day, or on their birthday, or on Mother's Day or Father's Day, they might go and wash their parents' feet on their birthday, right? Thanking their mom and dad for giving them this life. And if you've never done this before, if you do it, your mind will probably be shaken up by this. Because when I did this for my mom the first time, I was very nervous. I was getting down on the ground. I was all kind of shaking. And my mom, she was laughing and giggling because that's the way that she used to handle these kinds of situations. That shaking up of my body and my mind, that's the ego. The ego was getting triggered, and the ego didn't like that. The ego didn't like being down on my knees at the feet of my mother, washing her feet. So I was shaking and kind of nervous when I was doing this, but I knew that this is what the mind needed. So if you do this, you might notice that and just understand that this is working. And you would like to do that multiple times, and it'll train your mind to let go of its ego and humble the mind. Then you can show respect and gratitude with people through a why. This is something that's kind of becoming the international symbol of appreciation and gratitude. You know, they do it here in Thailand, they do it in India, they do it in other places as well. Here in Thailand, if you're going around society, you're going to be whying people about 15, 20, 30 different times if that's what you choose to do in your given day. And that's going to help to humble your mind. Even when I used to ride a motorbike and I come in and out of my neighborhood, there's some security guards standing there. Not that they need security guards. They're just kind of like greeters to greet people when they come in and out of the village. As I would ride my motorbike and they would open the gate, I would bow my head as I was going through the gate, right? This humbles your mind over time to be constantly doing this to the people around you. Again, you're not putting yourself below people, you're just humbling the mind. And you can do this not only here in Thailand, but you can do it in other places too. When I went to the USA in 2022, I bowed to people. I wide people. They thought it was wonderful. They smiled. They felt great. I checked into the hotel. Hello, sir. Hello, ma'am. Good morning. How are you? I'd like to check in, right? Or I did this when I went to Egypt in 2022. Assalamu alaikum. I would say to the people at the hotel, and they'd be like, "Oh, wow, assalamu alaikum. You checking in here? You staying at this hotel?" "Yeah, I sure am. I'm here for 5 days." "Oh, welcome. Nice to see you." Right? It's like they really perked up when they saw me doing this. And that's not the reason why I was doing it. I was just doing it to show my appreciation and gratitude for being in their hotel and build up a relationship with this person, right? Humbling the mind, right? So you can use this. I've even seen celebrities using this when they get awards. They will get up on stage and on TV. They will thank the audience or thank certain people that were involved in that. So you can see that this Y is becoming an international symbol of appreciation, gratitude, being thankful, and showing respect to people. And this will help you to humble your mind. You can practice generosity, loving kindness, and compassion with the people around you. This is going to help to humble your mind as well. You can eliminate judgment where you're not allowing your mind to have comparisons, where you're putting yourself above or below people. Wherever you see your mind doing that, cut that off and let it go. Being kind and gentle because it's the right thing to do, not because you want other people to treat you in a certain way, but because you understand it's wise to be gentle and polite. Because when you're gentle and polite, sometimes people are going to be rude and hostile and bitter with you, but you're not doing the politeness and kindness and being gentle because you want something from this other person, but because it's the wise thing to do. You can ask other people advice in what they've learned in life and just listen without trying to prove anything. Because let's just say you're in a social situation and you and a bunch of friends get together. If somebody starts talking about something wonderful that's going on in their life, your ego is going to have a tendency to want to come over the top of them. So if somebody says, "Yeah, I just finished up my master's degree in psychology," you're like, "Oh, really? Well, I've got a PhD." Right? Your mind's going to want to do that, right? That's your ego. You want to cut that off and not allow your mind to do that, right? "I just got a new car." "Oh, really? I got one last week," right? "I already got mine 3 months ago," right? So your mind's going to want to come over the top. So just listen to people about what they have to share. You can help others without any expectation of anything in return or any positive benefit for yourself. And then seek guidance from a teacher, just like you coming to learn at a temple. To a certain degree, your mind's admitting that you don't know everything that you need to know in order to live this life, right? Just coming to the temple like this, that's what your mind's doing to a certain degree. And this is really helpful for you. So it would be wise for you to learn from people and help your mind to do that. And then cut off and let go of any time your mind is wanting to project arrogance or pride or boastfulness or any of this kind of stuff. And then seek guidance regularly from a teacher to be able to help you with your ego, because you're going to have your ego coming up. It isn't something that's going to get eliminated easily. This conceit can take multiple years to eliminate from the mind. Remember, it took the Buddha 6 years to get to enlightenment. So it's going to take you some time to get to enlightenment. And this conceit is one of the deepest fetters that are in the mind. It's really deeply rooted in the mind, and it's oftentimes very hard to get rid of it. So you're going to need to chip away at it, and chip away at it, and chip away at it, and chip away at it. So if you do a lot of collection of many of these different things, it's going to be hitting it from all these different angles and knocking it down more and more. So any questions on elimination of conceit?
We talk about conceit previous. Actually, there are two sides. One side is you always try to above people and try to look down other people. This is one side. And what about the other side? Sometimes people may think that I am always below other people and I'm lack of confidence, and I thought that people will look down on me. So the way to dissolving this conceit, there's one way to be try to be humble, right? To humble our own mind. Is there other way that people are already humble enough that you need to build their confidence and trying to let them, like, encourage them to treat people equally. So this is the other side. So I was wondering that we talk about a lot about humbling ourselves. Is there other way to rise ourselves and encourage ourselves to be more confident?
Yeah, as you're training your mind with all these teachings to get rid of the pollutions of your mind will lift up more and more, particularly the loving kindness meditation, because typically someone can have like negative self-talk or inner dialogue where you're degrading and diminishing yourself. When you get rid of that through the loving kindness meditation, that'll help you to build your confidence and more look at yourself as being equal to other people, because that's ultimately what you would like to be able to do, is see yourself as equal to everybody else. So you go outside, you see the king of Thailand walking down the street, which I doubt you'll see, but let's just say you see that. It's like, hello, sir, how are you? Or maybe you see the queen of Thailand. Hello, ma'am, how are you? Good morning. But then you see someone sweeping the street. Hello, sir, how are you? Hello, ma'am, good morning, right? You would treat everybody the same. This is one of the reasons why the mind gets to such peace and joy, because if you have conceit in your mind, you'll talk to one group of people one way where you're talking down to them, and you'll talk to another group of people another way, you'll talk up to them. And now when you're in a social situation, your mind's having to constantly figure out who's above you and who's below you, because you're talking to different people in different ways. But if you just have one way of treating everybody, your mind can be at ease because you treat everybody the same. The king or queen of Thailand or this person sweeping the street, you can treat everybody exactly the same. And now your mind will be at ease. So if you're doing loving kindness meditation, this will help lift up the mind and getting rid of the cravings, desires, attachments in the mind, where you see your mind putting yourself below people. Cut that off. Don't allow your mind to do that. And just recognize that this person's just like you. They're another human being. They're not above you. They're not below you. And then now more and more as you're entering into these different situations, your mind will be more and more uplifted. And by the way, if other people are looking down on you, right, or other people are looking up to you, you can't change that. Right? That's in their mind. That's what they're choosing to do. It's not a result of you that's choosing to do that. So it's up to you to practice for yourself. Now, there are situations where sometimes, I'll give you an example from my life, right? Like I teach all these teachings and sometimes people come to me and are like, wow, David, you're so great. You're such a great teacher or whatever. And I will say, the teachings of the Buddha surely work to help you, and I'm pleased to share those with you. And I'll say, I'm just like you. I'm just another human being just like you. They're like, yeah, but you're sharing these teachings. You know, you do this, you do that. I'm like, but I'm just a human being just like you. But whether they adopt that thinking or not, I can't control that, right? All I can do is kind of say those things occasionally just to kind of help this person along a little bit. But at the end of the day, if they're going to look down on me, which plenty of people look down on me too, right? They're like, look at this guy sitting in the temple wearing his white clothes, shaving his hair. He thinks he's so great, right? I can't control those people looking down on me. I'm just here sharing what I know to lead to enlightenment. And if they like to look down on me, up to them. That's their ego. But if someone looks up to me, that's their ego too. And they would be wise to let go of that. So you would like to focus on your practice and training your mind. And then what other people choose to think or do, that's on them. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, there is a question. A lot of things going through my mind, connecting certain dots about the ego, studying Buddhism. What I'm doing here, part of it is I'm really interested. I want to find peace, but it's also, people that know me, that I care about, whose opinion I care about. They all know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in Chiang Mai getting wasted and having a lot of sex, basically. I'm studying, doing this stuff. And as I'm learning, it's sort of part of my ego, I guess. I also want to be a teacher. I'm a student here, but then I go home and I sort of try to share what I'm learning and tell people.
Mm-hmm.
My question, I guess, to you, you're the teacher, I'm the student here. In terms of explaining what's going on in my mind as I'm learning this, early stages of, I'm pretty new to most of this, but is it just best to keep it to myself and just be a student everywhere and not to have to share it with everyone I know, or that everybody knows what I'm doing. You know what I'm going? That's
Yes.
part of my ego too.
Yes.
My identity.
Yeah, it's best to just keep it to yourself. As you become more and more peaceful and more joyful, people are going to start asking you questions, and that's when you share with them. Because otherwise you're giving unsolicited guidance, and that's your ego, thinking that I know what's right and you need to learn this too. Instead, just make yourself peaceful, make your mind peaceful, train your mind, and eventually people are going to be like, wow, Boulder, what are you doing? Like, I notice you're so much more peaceful these days. You're like, oh, I've been practicing Buddhism. Really? What's that all about? And now they're actually truly interested, and then you share with them. And you'll be more prepared to share with them too, because you can see that it's actually working. Where right now you don't know 100% about what's working and what's not. Mm-hmm. Joe, you have a question?
Teacher David, can you just elaborate on why the importance of washing feet is so humbling?
Because you're putting your mind in a position where with the ego, it wants to be above people. And now you're putting yourself down on the floor at someone's feet. So you're kind of doing exactly the opposite of what your mind wants, because it wants to be up here. And that's where it feels comfortable. And now when you put it down here, the mind doesn't feel comfortable there. And when you do that, where you can feel comfortable down here, now your mind can come up and just kind of see everybody as equal, sharing your appreciation and your gratitude and your respect with people. So it really works because your mind wants to be up here, and that's where it feels comfortable. But putting it down here, now it can feel comfortable with that too. And then it kind of equals out where now it's in the middle. Mm-hmm.
I only ask because it's in the Bible, Jesus watching the
Mm-hmm.
apostles' feet.
Yep, he sure did. The Bible doesn't explain why, but now you know. There's a question coming in on YouTube here. It says, oh, actually, this is not questions. This is someone's ego right here. Someone's trying to teach me. So I'm not even going to read that. Go ahead.
Can I have one more question about just following his question? You said that probably you want to be above people. Is there an investigation or research that how many people that in percentage that want to be above you, and is there any other people that they're intended to be lower than other people? Is there any cases?
If you put your mind above people, in some cases you will put yourself below people too. It comes together, but it's not so obvious, right? So like someone who walks around thinking they're so great and they're so wonderful and they're putting themselves above people, internally within their mind, they actually think of themselves as being below people in some situations. And that's detrimental to their mind. And you will see that in certain interactions that they have. But there are some people that regularly put themselves below people. It's very rare, but it happens. When I used to teach Thai massage, I used to have a big class of people, and there was this one girl who would go over and sit in the corner, and she would basically hide in the corner, like literally her physical body was almost like hiding behind a bookshelf because she wasn't comfortable interacting with other people. This was her mind thinking she was below people. And it was very detrimental to her because it was very hard for her to get involved in the group because she just didn't feel like she was a part of the group and she was meant to be there. But yet she was interested in learning the massage, but she was all the way in the corner, hiding behind the bookshelf. So it does happen, but it's pretty rare. But if they put themselves above people, they will put themselves below as well. It just might not be seen publicly. Mm-hmm.
Before there was talking about perception is also an ego. So I want to ask if, for example, if in my work in our office, I have colleagues who is a drug addict, and suddenly there's something got stolen in the office, and I suspect this person is the one who did it. So this is maybe not the truth, but is it a perception or is it an ego? I don't look down or look up to this person usually, but in situation like this.
Yeah, it's definitely a perception because you don't know what's true or false there. It's just your view or opinion, but it's not necessarily the ego. Some of your perceptions are part of the ego, but some are not, right? Like just having the perception, like someone could have the perception of any number of different things, but it doesn't mean it's part of the ego. I'm trying to think of some examples, like walking into your child's room and thinking that they didn't clean their room. That's a perception. That's a view or opinion that may or may not be true, but that's not part of the ego. So just because someone has a perception doesn't mean that it's part of the ego. So what you just described as you're thinking that someone has stolen something, you don't know whether they did or not. It's definitely a perception, but it's not an ego. It's not part of the ego. Now, if you thought that person stole something and they are so bad because of that, that's the ego now coming in, because the mind's now judging them as you are bad because you stole that, right? So like when I watch TV, sometimes or not TV, but I watch a YouTube video of like maybe there's like a single mom who's struggling with money and she's gone into a grocery store to steal some food. And when the police catch her, she says, I was just trying to feed my kids. I just don't have the money and I don't have a way of getting money, right? So we can look at that and we can be like, oh, that's really unfortunate. And sometimes what the police do is they go buy the food for her. Instead of arresting her and taking her to jail, they can see that this person's very sincere and they just go back into the store. The police officer pulls out their money and they sit there and pay for the food themselves, right? So in this situation, we can understand like, yeah, this is unwise. This person stole, but we don't have to judge the person and look down on them because they stole, right? Whereas if we judge them, if we're like, wow, look at them, they're so bad, they should go get a job, who do they think they are stealing? You know, that's the ego now coming in. So there can be a perception without ego, but sometimes there can be a perception with ego as well. Mm-hmm. Yep, you're welcome. Okay, so I don't see any other questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to end our class for this morning. It's now 10 minutes to 1. By just thanking you guys for your questions. Thank you for the discussion. This was really great. When we come back from lunch, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this next topic with you guys, which we're going to do breathing mindfulness meditation, but I'm going to teach about animal to human, the evolution of our consciousness, because that's where the ego is actually coming from, is your animalistic behaviors from your previous lives. So understanding this will actually help you to be able to not only shed the ego, but all your other unwholesome qualities as well. So I won't need much time to teach this to you. So let's take a break up until, let's just say 2:15, which is almost an hour and a half. And then when we come back, we'll do our meditation and I'll teach this to you. Okay. So enjoy your lunch and I'll see you at 2:15. Okay. You're welcome.